This is Pine Woods by Hasegawa Tohaku. It is a relatively famous painting, but it represents something I think is integral to anime and visual media as a whole. It's ma, the Japanese concept that negative space is just as important, if not more so, than everything else. It's a minimalistic idea, the pauses that make important words and speeches stand out, or the silence that makes your busy and noisy day a little bit more calm. I think it was best described as the silence between the notes which make the music. Anime does a lot of things really well. There's so many great stories and moments to find, and I always somehow find myself back watching the newest hot anime if I haven't watched any in a while. The storytelling, the clever and wacky character design, the action-packed and intelligent fight scenes, and the silent moments. For me, those silent moments in anime almost always caught me off guard. Being surrounded by constant noise where I grew up, it was rare to find those moments when you could just soak in the atmosphere. I remember going camping or staying at my grandmother's and just sitting outside and loving every moment of listening to the cicadas, frogs, birds, wind, water, you name it. Imagine my surprise when I was watching Ponyo, probably the first real anime I ever watched, and it represented those moments better than any cartoon I had watched at the time. Mushishi is an excellent example of ma. I'll avoid spoilers, but it follows Ginkgo, a calm but kind protagonist who chases and researches mushi, creatures, if you can call them that, who affect the world in interesting and unique ways. I absolutely loved this show. But it featured ma in abundance. Each episode contained more silence than not, and the show has no problem visually showing you things and letting you sit on them. Even Attack on Titan, a show known for its intensity and action, features this fairly often. Even looking at the first episode, one of the first scenes even, after showing the audience a fast-paced and horrifying slideshow of images that gave an idea to where the story may take you, it pulls back and purposefully gives the audience a moment of silence and a wide shot of landscapes to balance out the intensity and let the audience take in the images they just saw. I think I might just be a sucker for landscape shots. There are plenty of anime that are action-packed, fast-paced, but I would venture to guess that you could find those moments somewhere in these shows too. It's something that I think is just represented so well in Japanese animation that isn't here in the US, at least not in animated form. But there are a few Western cartoons. Samurai Jack was something I had a hard time watching when I was younger. It was slow, and it seemed like it always took so long for anything to happen. But later, when I revisited it, I was completely drawn in. Watching Jack fight, trying to get back to his past, was captivating, yes. But the silent and slow storytelling meshed so perfectly with his calm demeanor, which matches how he was raised and trained as a young child. A lot of 90s cartoons were much slower paced, but as the 2000s crawled on, the pacing moved with it, becoming faster and faster. Kids, including myself, were trained more and more to constantly stay busy with cartoons, movies, video games, and streaming basically killed any semblance of me watching anything slowly. But there were a few shows that did use ma very effectively, I think. Steven Universe was really, really good early on. It managed to feature a lot of really good silent moments, effectively emphasizing key emotional beats and properly keeping you waiting for the next piece of dialogue. The ending credits are also a great example of this, as it was used several times as complete silence, normally reserved for episodes with impending climaxes. Even when it wasn't used in this way, the music was almost always calm, and the backgrounds chosen were relaxing and simple. The seriousness you find in anime isn't something you find nearly as often in Western cartoons overall. I think that's a major reason why I come back to it as often as I do. While anime certainly has its fair share of issues, Japan took it seriously long before Westerners did, unless you were Disney or Pixar, of course. But with that seriousness, there was more of a respect for the audience to sit on things and trust that in 5 seconds of silence, they weren't just going to find something more interesting to watch. This could be boiled down to lack of slow pacing in Western media, and it kind of is. It could also just be a personal preference of mine. I enjoy slower paced media every now and then. But I do feel like, at the moment, there is a bit of a lack of Western cartoons that feature this Japanese concept. Even now, when we're getting more cartoons aimed at older audiences, it still lacks the slower pace and instead seems to go for gritty and violent rather than just mature and slow. I do think cartoons are slowly being represented in more mature ways here in the US, but we have a long way to go until we get mature cartoons without having to be a comedy with drama sprinkled in. I had a lot of trouble figuring out how to end this video, so here's the former Director General of the Japan Foundation in New York explaining Ma better than I can.
There is a concept called Ma. Ma means empty, or distance, or blank. I always sense the difference between that kind of sense of time of Japanese and Westerners, especially Americans. In conversation with American people, you need to keep talking. People feel a little afraid of having ma between my talk and your talk.
Okay, I'm gonna get a drink.